Yo guys, this is Reinhardt, and today this video is going to be about the results from a survey I got so far. First of all, a lot of people took it. 5,903 PvPers actually took my survey, which I think is amazing. And Reinhardt is also going to help me. He's going to make another video, which also further can actually help us to get more responses. I want to wait for at least 10,000 before I submit the survey to Blizzard. So for some of you, please share the survey. We're going to be linking the first link on the bottom. It helps out a lot. Not me, but the whole community. If you can actually share that link with other maybe big YouTuber streamers or even your friends and whoever you know plays World of Warcraft. It really matters, and I will really want to try to make actually a difference here. So I'm going to be clicking in and out, and I'm going to be interpreting the data based on my own kind of interpretation and what the kind of data I have so far. And I'm also going to talk about one interesting post about the representation above 2200 plus for specs. So let's get started. First of all, what class do you play the most? Is a DK sitting at 14%, and it's kind of not surprising, granted my audience, and granted also that the DKs are the easiest to level from 55 to level cap. And I know a lot of people have the DK alts. So of course, a lot of people, almost everybody I know has a DK alt because it's just the way of nature DK's leveling. And then the next ones are sitting at like roughly 10%, and there is a Paladin, Druid, Priest, Warrior. And then at 9% to 9.5% we have Warlock, Shaman, and then 8.5% we have Mages. Hunters are the lowest playable class, and the Monks are the lowest playable class, like 33.6 and 5.7%. Which kind of makes sense. I know a lot of hunters usually like to say that hunters are completely not viable, but a lot of hunters got a rank 1 and actually scored the BlizzCon winners were PhD in season 9, and there was a lot of hunters that were contesting in now tournaments last expansion. So I think the hunters is one of those classes that extremely difficult to play. Well, not extremely difficult to play, but the level of control a good hunter can do compared to the average level of control for a bad hunter is humongous. So therefore, what I'm trying to say here is hunters is usually one of those classes that is least playable, have a lot of skills involved, and that's why most of the people usually don't like to play hunters. What's average arena experience? We have 36% from 1500 to 2000, which doesn't surprise me at all. That's kind of what my was intake. The next popular question is from 2000 to 2200, and then we have 2400 plus, 22 to 2400, and then 0 to 1500. I'm actually very surprised there's a lot of people above 2400 plus, but I know a lot of people took my survey. I know Vanguards, I know a lot of rank 1 gladiators took my survey, and they're like, yeah, nice job. And my posts are also been on Arena Junkies, so that's probably why it helps so much. Do you think arenas are balanced? 1.3% of the people think arenas are balanced. Then we have somewhat at 15%. Not really is the most popular. 43% of the people, roughly almost 44%, thinking that arenas are not really balanced. And then 40% think that they're absolutely not balanced at all whatsoever. So I think this is actually a good estimate to what average person says. I mean, 83.6% people are actually thinking that arenas are not really or absolutely not balanced. And I think this is actually pretty huge to see how the people are enjoying playing in arenas. And then the rated battleground experience is very, very little, and a lot of people think they're actually somewhat balanced, and that does not surprise me at all, because for one particular reason, in RBG, for example, healing, there's 3 healers, and the defensive, I kind of get meshed up together. At least I know as a DK, I have a decent survivability in RBGs compared to arenas when I'm constantly getting trained. On the other hand, in RBGs, it's all just a mash of classes together. I think the biggest imbalance comes in there is making classes and some of the specs that are not the most viable. For those players who say, yeah, it's not really balanced. And I kind of can actually agree with it. Like, for example, if you take survival hunters or marksman hunters, they're not the most viable class right now in RBGs. Or enhancement shamans, for that matter. Okay, let's keep going down here. What kind of changes would you like to see in the future? Number 1 winner is a burst reduction, 38.5%. And then we have an instant crowd control reduction, 33.7%. Then dispel's going on a lower cooldown, 11%, healing reduction 15.1%, and then only 1% said leave it like it is. 1% said of the players, hey, you know what, leave arenas like the way they are right now, don't do anything to PvP, which I think is actually pretty comical. Anyway, the reason why after that I made a question saying how would you like to reduce the burst, how would you like to see the instant crowd control and all that stuff, and I put a leave it like it is answer in every one of them. And the reason why I did it is I put out most things that people complain about on the forums, based like from reading multiple threads, and it was on European forums, Russian forums, English forum, American forums. I read so much about the complaints right now, and there was the number one was burst, the second was crowd control, and then it's a healing, dispel, and all that stuff. So that's the reason why I made the next three questions, or three to four questions, is how would you reduce the burst, how would you reduce crowd control, because those are the lot of people were complaining about. And for most of the people who think it was actually absolutely perfectly fine, the way the burst is, or the way that instant crowd control is, then they could have just said leave it like it is. So I wasn't trying to, a lot of people said that I'm trying to skew the results, I'm trying to see which class needs to be toned down by indirectly saying the burst reduction, all that stuff. I did not do any of that, to be honest. I just put out the biggest things that people complain about. Anyway, so now how would you reduce the burst? Add extra resilience on the weapon, 18%. Add crit damage reduction, 19.1%. And then 56%, and this is a clear winner, said reduce damage of individual spells and disable CD stacking. That means no longer you can pop 3 or 4 different offensive cooldowns with the trinket at the same time to global somebody completely down. And reduce the individual spells like Frostbomb. That's the most people actually complain about, and toning down those individual spells. 56.6% of the people said they actually that the overall damage is fine, it's just some of the skills do too much damage and there's too much offensive CD stacking, and I completely agree with that answer. Okay, now how would you like to see instant crowd control changed? 47% said increase the cooldown on instant crowd controls. I also agree with that. I think that crowd control should come from the skill, not comes from just, hey, I have a cooldown, it's on low cooldown, let me control somebody to oblivion completely. So 47% think that the reduction of instant crowd control is needed right now. And then only 21% said make it AoE castable, and almost 24% said reduce the duration of CC effect, meaning reduce the amount of time that needs to be you're going to be controlled by instant crowd control. Now how would and for instant crowd controls, yes, I play Warlock and I still think that Blood Fear needs to be changed. I don't think it actually belongs in a Warlock tier. I think the biggest definition of the Warlock was to see who can control the most by spamming fears, but who can juke the most using their Shadow School, and I think Blood Fear is completely kinda out of reach there. The biggest thing I would like to see about the Blood Fear change is actually remove the cooldown for Blood Fear, remove the HP cost, actually rename the spell itself, but what you need to put is your fear casting speed would be reduced by like 0.3 seconds, because right now a lot of Warlocks stack Mastery for for Affliction, Demo, and Destro. That means they don't have a lot of haste to go around. That means that getting those fears out is actually relatively difficult for most of Lux, and that's why they're forced to spec in the Blood Fear. So I think the Blood Fear could be changed and just reduce the cast time of instant crowd controls by 0.3 seconds, where it's not completely overpowered, it's not instant, and on the other hand it's interruptible, and on the other hand it will be a little bit easier to get it off. Sort of like in Cataclysm with the haste, or even Wrath of Lich King with a haste and a fear. Okay, so now, would you like to see a reduction on defensive dispels? 60% says no, 40% says yes. I kind of agree that there should be cooldown on defensive dispel, because spamming defensive dispels is what kind of makes, completely breaks the game towards, if one class is getting balanced to getting all their control getting dispelled all the freaking time, that means they're gonna have a lot of things in their tool, either way too much damage, way too much burst, or a lot of different instant control. Okay, now would you like to see a healing to be toned down? And I know a few people said, no, leave it like it is. There's no need to tone down the healing. But I personally think that my personal answer was yes, but only after burst reduction. I think that healing is a little bit too high in the game, and I think that if they reduce the burst, they should be reducing the healers as well. And a lot of audience actually agree with me here, and they 68.5%, that's probably the highest percentage ever, said yes, I completely agree with this change. 68.5% said let's reduce some of the healing, but only after the burst will be reduced. And I think that will actually help a lot of people with sustained damage. Now, what is the most what's the strongest class in spec in PvP right now? This is where the data gets very interesting, and let's get started. First of all, Mage is a clear winner with a 17.5%, and I completely don't doubt it, because yesterday I died from a Frost Nova itself. It was Frost Nova, Frost Bomb, Fire Blast, Frost Fireball, instant proc that I get, and then 2 Ice Lances, and I actually went down from 100 to 0 with just a Blanket Silence and just a Pet Nova. So a lot of people think that the Frost Mages have way too much burst, and it's mostly coming from the Frost Bomb element. The second one is Arms Warriors at 16.3%. Now, if we take that data and put it on which classes are the highest represented right now in the game above 2200, we have first is Warriors, second is Frost Mage. Those two are the highest represented classes above 2200 plus. So the community here is right on point, and the actual raw statistics of representation here is right with you over here at the same time. So I think good job, community, you kind of recognize it. You took the survey before the threat of representation came out, and it was right one-on-one. So community actually does know what it's talking about, and I love it. Now let's look at the next overpowered class. Is going to be spec is going to be Demolock at 19.6%, and then we have and then we have Feral Druids at 19.2%. So Demolocks don't have to cast a lot; they are not lockdownable, and I think they are very strong. With the Chaos Wave nerfed by 33%, I think they kind of became a little bit weaker, and I absolutely agree with the change. I think the Chaos Wave should have been nerfed 100% there. Feral Druid do a lot of burst, a lot of sustain, and a lot of crowd control, so that's probably why people think that it's overpowered, and 9.2%. But it's still 9.2%, almost half the people think Ferals are overpowered compared to what the Frost Mages right now are. Okay, and then we have a Beast Mastery Hunter, and the rest is kind of like a Distraction Lock a little bit. The least amount of people think that the classes are overpowered are Survival Hunter, Arcane Mage, Marksman Hunter, Windwalker, and then it's like Rogues, Unholy Decay, and Affliction Lock. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Is which DPS spec do you think is too weak right now? So for the weakest DPS spec, we have a Subtlety Rogue and Assassination Rogue. Those two are the winners. And then we have a Affliction Warlock, Elemental Shaman, and Unholy Decay. And yes, I completely agree with that. The sustained classes damage is very weak. Affliction Lock and Unholy Decay are represented 1.5 and 1.6% above 2200. So roughly less than 2% of the people playing those specs were able to get over 2200. Even Elemental Shaman is a little bit higher than Unholy Decay by 0.1%, but they're still struggling. So let me reiterate that. There's 10 times more Arms Warriors than Unholy Decays or Affliction Locks, and so are the Mages. And people kind of guessed right on point. They said Mages and Warriors are too strong in PvP right now. The sustain classes, Affliction Locks, Shamans for example, Unholy Decays are too weak right now, and the representation shows there. They also say Rogues are a little bit weak right now. The representation is right there in your face. Okay, which healing class do you think is too strong right now? People said Restoration Druid, Resto Shaman, Holy Paladin, and of course those three are very well represented. The Shamans are highest right now, represented above 2200. The only thing I'm gonna say in the Shaman's defense was that was before the nerf, before the totem nerf. By the way, don't pay attention to the bad. That was before the nerf, so the Shamans I think actually is doing a little bit worse right now. But I don't think that the rest of shamans, rest of druids, and holy paladins are completely overpowered. I just think that these priests and Mistweaver monks are a little bit on the weaker side. There. Okay, so which healing class do you think is too weak? We have Disc Priest, Holy Priest, and Mistweaver Monk. That's exactly what I just said. Which class has the most defensives? And we have we have Warrior, probably with has something to do with the second win, at 21%. We have Mage at 17%, and then we have a Druid and Demolog. And those classes are right on point. A lot of people think that they have a lot of survivability cooldowns. A lot of people complain about that survivability, and there you go, it's right in your face. And then which class have the least amount of defenses? And a lot of people were complaining about DKs being way too squishy. I know Yas Presents, DK had to go from his DK mage, another X had to go from his DK to his playing to his mage because he was getting focused all the time and almost literally globaled. And this is exactly the statistics. People say DK has the least amount of survivability, it's 23.2%, and then we have rogues, shamans, and priests. And I think that's the valid actually thing. And then now about the text messages, I haven't read the whole like over 5,000 texts, but I read a really good amount, and I would say that aside from the cursing towards the developers and a little bit of an immaturity, I want to say a couple things here. A lot of people think that the developers are a little bit out of reach with the game. The changes that they actually sometimes do could have been addressed a little bit better, and that the main thing a lot of people said, almost like 80% of the people in the text messages said, we think that developers do not take our feedback seriously completely. We think that we're just there just venting out our frustration in the game, and the developers in no way absolutely acknowledging it. And I could actually kind of relate to that because I made a lot of good posts that made to a highly rated status. They were actually featured on the top Blizzard page before, and I haven't heard much of it at all. But anyway, I'm gonna be still waiting for 10,000 responses, but the data I have right now have been consistent from 1,000 responses to almost 6,000 responses. So I would imagine that the data probably gonna be the same consistent, and I don't think that another 4,000 gonna completely skew the results. Now I'm gonna really quickly type here, guys, and I apologize for the typing because this is what I do. I type, and from here I am gonna go to representation if they did not reduce. Yeah, there, December 7th breakdown. So for the breakdown we have Arms Warrior 14%, Frost Mage is 10.8%, Reza Shaman's 9.9%, Holy Paladin 9.4%, then we have Shadow Priest, Rest of Druid, Beast Mastery, and the bottom classes are gonna be we have Windwalker Monk, Fire Mage, Arcane Mage, Assassination Rogue, Holy Priest, Survival Hunter, Fury Warrior, Sub Rogue, Enhancement Shaman, and then we have Unholy Decay, Affliction Lag, Elemental Shaman. All those were below 2%. Wow, those were below 2%. So there's 1.6 Unholy Decays and there's 14% Arms Warriors. There is 10.8% Frost Mages, there's 1.5% Affliction Lags. So that is a good data. It completely follows perfectly with the survey I made and with your responses as well. So kind of a good job there, guys, I guess. Now let me talk a little bit about future videos. The last one update where I will be posting to tweeting to a ghost crawler, submitting multiple threads and help the developers actually see the data will be next week, Monday or Tuesday, depending when I'm gonna hit that 10,000 responses mark, and I need your help on that again. Now really quickly, guys, the videos, I know the Shadow Cliff after the changes it kind of like been toned down a lot, especially the Demolax nerf. So we are playing right now actually Affliction and Holy at 2200 MMR. So I think I'm gonna give you a really good perspective for a Shadow Cliff guide. I'll show you that which actually like Warlock specs are good for what. For example, if we work with Destrolac, we got up to 2200, we got up to 2350 with the Demolac, and then we got up to, we didn't get up to 2200, but we did play at 2200 MMR as a Decay, Affliction, Unholy Decay, Affliction Luck, Resto Shaman. So I'm gonna give you a different perspective, and I kind of decided to hold on to the guides because there are so many different changes. There are probably gonna be a lot of changes in the future, but I think that I already have to start putting out those guides again. And I did a video with Swifty, dueling video. It was really fun. I was playing my Demolog against a warrior. Surprisingly, he actually did pretty good. He had some really good clutch spell reflex, and I'm saying surprisingly because the Demolags actually counter the warriors pretty damn hard. I still won the majority of the duels by a really good percentage, but I think the Demolax is one of the best specs right now against the melee. Maybe them and the Frost Mages. I think that Demolax maybe have a little bit more anti-melee than even the Frost Mage, which is very kind of surprising. Anyway, that's about it, guys, for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this raw statistics, boring ass data, and talk to you guys later.